Welcome back. This is the eagerly awaited part 2 to the technical analysis masterclass. If you haven't seen part 1, you need to pause this, open a new tab and go soak that one in, because that video is the foundation for everything we discuss in this one. That being said, quick recap of part 1. We covered the logic behind tape reading and how fundamentally nothing has changed from the data standpoint. It's just the way we look at the data. We learned how not to catch a falling knife, so no more bleeding, no more rekt, and we learned where and when in a market cycle to buy. So if you understand that last point alone, it's like I've given you a blank check. Also, I got a bonus for you guys at the end, so make sure you stick around because that is juicy. I don't think I've seen it covered anywhere else on the internet. If it has, shout out to anyone who's covered it because they're definitely on their game. If not, definitely gonna claim that one as the Wickz Theory. Anyway, without any further delay, let's get straight into this one. Alright, cool. So with all of that being said, let's zoom this out further, because what we've got now, we had our initial breach of a trading area. We had a big pullback, come down, took a long time. Then eventually we got that momentum shift. And in that momentum shift, we were able to deduce this buying behavior was the same as this guy's buying behavior. And therefore we said, okay, cool. Show us this is real. Then at one point we got another one of these. Do you remember? And then we said, all right, show us that's real. Show us you can't make a lower low to that. And then we said, we'll start accumulating within here. So basically, what is this? This was a whole macro trend. This was the whole bull market up, the whole bear market down, all of the accumulation, all up to the point of blast off, and how you need to handle it in every single market cycle. This is where it gets really, really crazy, because what I've just shown you and what we've broken down about this macro market cycle, you can apply it on any micro level as well. You could take it to the 15 minutes and apply it on the trends in the 15-minute time frame. You could apply it to the 1 hour, the 4 hour, the daily. The world's your oyster. You understand where I'm coming from now? So hope you're still keeping up with me. I know I'm dropping a lot of game on you pretty quick, but I hope you lot are still keeping up. All right, let's move this forward. We've spoken about all of that in terms of the cycles and pullbacks and sellers getting obliterated and therefore not being present in the market to bring prices down. Let's take this forward. Let's put this into practice now, yeah? So let's have a look at this situation here. And if you remember, in 2017, we had that initial run up, and then for the rest of the year, we were pretty much in this pullback. Let's have a look at that pullback in itself now, yeah? Moving up, pullback came in, pullback still coming in, and finally at this point, boom. Now, don't get confused here, because look, made it to here. Or even if you want to say, nah, he made it to here. It's the same guy. It's the same area. Don't forget, the high of this zone was here. That actually got challenged and it got rejected. So as of right now, we can't take that as valid. But you see in this situation here, if we watch the next move down from the sellers within the whole context of what we're talking about now, and then we see the buyers react as well with the same amount of conviction that the sales came down in, we can tell, yep, all right, cool. There's definitely a momentum shift within here. It's at equilibrium. Show me you can't make a lower low. And then what you see is multiple attempts here. And what you're actually seeing is the first attempt that he makes, drastic. Holding. Buyers don't have much to say about it. Seller steps in again aggressively, but he can't even make the same low that he made before over here. You see? We see the buyers react to this last move in here. Interesting, but we see a big spike. So one thing we know for certain is sellers in and around this area are still about. They finally get challenged, and then they reactivate from the actual face of the seller. It reactivates, comes back down aggressive, but look, again, unable to make even an equal low. And what you see in this moment is, this is like that pin getting pulled out of the grenade. This thing is literally about to pop. Anyone who got in late chasing the market, like over here, because they were seeing the green candle start pumping, they got taken out first. All of their buys, so if their stop losses are like here, or if their stop losses are like here because they've got in around here, to close their buys, they have to sell their buys. And if they sell their buys, there's someone who's waiting to buy those sells off of them. That same someone who needs those sells because he needs to buy it. So if you think about this as like a rocket ship, if you're trying to go a certain distance, you need enough fuel, and it needs to be proportionate to the distance that you want to go. Do you understand? So in this moment, this guy's happy. Whoever was accumulating, he's happy now. He's got all of the sells that he needed to take the market up. And basically what's going to happen next is, as you can see, once we start breaking these highs over here, guess what? We've just actually broken structure of this previous market cycle that we were in, and we're officially entering into a new cycle. Let's clean all of this up. The new reference points for us become, where's our breach line? Our breach line was from around here. Who's responsible? This guy. And for reference, we want to see where the lows of this zone are, and that's going to be in and around here, right? Now, what I want to show you is, so you see, once this breach happens, that whole cycle starts again. Okay, so let's tie this all together. Let's take everything that we've learned so far and let's put it into practice in this market cycle now. So as we see again, it's parabolic move up. Prices can't sustain themselves up here, and they crash back literally just as fast as they went up. Okay, cool. Where did they crash back to? Let's follow this move down. What did the buyers have to say in return? Not a lot. As we see, sellers reactivate. This was the buyer's response to it. Now don't get confused just because this came into the area to test this, because think about it. The high of this is still here. Did that get tested? No, it didn't. So as far as that's concerned, sellers are still dominant. Sellers continue down. They breach this area now. And then after that, they're able to make a new low. So this becomes the guy we're looking at. This is also a very, very relevant seller, because look, his liquidity is just here. That's literally smack bang on him. So therefore, this whole thing, this whole area, it converges into just one big zone with so much selling pressure inside it. We see a reaction from the buyer in and around these levels. And what do we see here? We see some signs of life, but at the same time, notice this. Above here, this was a wick. And who was this wick going into challenge when it got rejected? This whole area here. So as we can still see, sellers are still in control of the market midterm. You still got this guy saying macro, that's his perspective. But then you've got these guys in the meantime still saying markets are sell. So as of right now, we're still dealing with the same area. We're still dealing with this guy who's responsible for holding the market. Okay, let's move further on. So as we're watching this pullback come in, you see from this area here, I'll try my best to draw a straight line. So you see in the sequence of this pullback now, it's made another lower low. Who was the guy which was responsible for initiating this whole thing? It was this guy here. So short term, this is the seller's first line of defense. You could even think of him as the first mini boss in this buyer's game. So as we can see from another very, very miniature perspective, if we were to say we had another breach underneath here, the guy who's responsible is sitting in here. Once we get this moment in here, well, we've actually got, just in this moment, just here, you've got that momentum shift that we talk about. So with that knowledge, we say, show me the seller can't make a lower low to this guy that's taking the market up. And in this area, if at any point we become convinced that it doesn't look like the seller has the ability to make that lower low, let's take this forward and see what happens with it. Boom. Crazy, right? But I want you guys to follow the logic of this. So follow this here. When prices did go up, who did we go to challenge from here? We went in to challenge these guys directly. And just as we spoke about before of this miniature momentum shift, if we were to take this picture just for a split second here, what we'd be seeing is something that looks like this. And that's the type of power that we're going to challenge these sellers with. So what happened here? This is when the news of the SEC lawsuit dropped, and the selling pressure was immense. Now imagine the price that ends up holding this, because you have to remember, this is like a steam train. Look at the areas we come down and test, and now who are we actually going to challenge? We're going to challenge the guy who started this whole move up in the first place. So do you remember what we say before? We're watching the sellers to see if they can make a lower low. They haven't made a lower low, so we know one thing: this buyer is still very much alive and he's still very much in the game. But the sellers, they're so strong. How can we deal with that? We need to see them fade. So then in a miniature universe in here, if you were just to look at this, you would have seen a small momentum shift in here. We say, okay, cool. Show me you can't make a lower low to this buyer who's just jumped in from here. If this is going to be the turnaround point from the most miniature universe. At some point in this, you could have loaded up, you could have taken this. Funnily enough, mentioning that this is exactly where I joined Twitter, 28th of January, 2021. And the reason, again, was I just wanted to spread some love. I just wanted to give everyone the heads up. Look, XRP looks like it's going to explode. Make sure you're in this because this is about to go nuts. Okay, what happens? We had that Fugazi February 1st pump and dump group. What did it achieve? Absolutely zero. All it did was it went up to challenge the same area that we were challenging before of liquidity just above this high. It got rejected from there. All of the late people who bought in here absolutely got wrecked short term. And what actually ended up happening was it returned to its average trajectory. It went up, made it equal high. And now, remember what we're doing here. So we got all of this in the context of this bigger momentum shift here. And now the whole idea, as you remember, is show us you can't make a lower low. So we watch the sales come down again. And this time we see their inability to even get down and make the same previous lows that they were able to do before. One last thing about this area we will say is seeing the sellers' inability to make lower lows and seeing them just lose the ball. That would have been the last chance that you had to get into XRP before we had this huge parabolic run up here. Now, the same way that we just talked about everything we just spoke about, we're literally doing the same thing again. When this thing happened, this thing went to test this thing and the whole liquidity zone above it as well. So wait. You mean to tell me if we simplified all of this, we could actually look at this like on the most miniature level? We had this situation in terms of a momentum shift, remember? All right, let me label that as number one. What about this whole situation that came in from here? Sell came grinding down, and then boom. So that was the second picture. Cool. Remember, same thing applied. Shows you can't make a lower low, shows you can't make a lower low, and then same thing, right? So what did that do? It's like when we defeat this guy, it unlocks our ability to go and challenge this guy. And then if we do well there, he doesn't have anything that he can do in response to us doing that, then we're through to go and challenge the next guy. So who is the next guy? Who are we talking about? Do you remember we spoke about this whole zone here? And we spoke about, well, where's his liquidity? His liquidity is above him here. Where does that put him? Literally right here. Where does that put you? Literally right here. So now we're talking about this whole area here. Around about 120. Yeah? When we put this in, notice what just happened. We've just got the same thing on the biggest universe that we've got under this guy who originally said it's a buy on a macro side, yeah? So what does that mean? That means number one says, I agree with the big boss. Let's write big boss here. Number two, this universe says, I also agree with the big boss now. And now number three, and we're still early days, but number three is starting to say, or has said, because he's officially declared, yo, guys, I am back. That's the same buying behavior as over here. So what are we seeing here? Do you remember, if you've ever seen me on Twitter talk about an eclipse where the sun, the moon, the earth, yeah, all in alignment? And I know the sizes here are a madness, but don't worry, it's not a science lesson. Yeah. If all of these guys are in alignment and they're saying the same thing, that, ladies and gentlemen, is an eclipse. What do you think is happening here? He's saying this, he's saying this, he's saying this, he's saying this. Now, if you ask me, that seems pretty unanimous. If that's the case, then this is the case. I hope that's clear. All right, so now we've established what the eclipse is. Why is the eclipse important? Because it means that all of the sellers that are holding the bear market down, they've now been challenged. Now, what does this mean? Do you remember what we said before? Now we can simplify it as this situation in here. So if that's the case, do you remember, like we said before, does it mean that people should just jump in and buy it because we've come to challenge these sellers now? No, of course not. So what do? We wait, we watch, and we say, show me you can't make a lower low. Do you understand? And obviously, as we can see, sellers are coming in hot, but in and around these areas. It's not a coincidence we're sitting here. Who's sitting here as well? This is where our buyer activated from. What's the case that we can hold here? The case that we can hold here is this is where our buyer is sitting. So we're due to expect some type of reaction out of here. A reaction like this out of here would be the first thing that we need again to turn this medium term picture around. Because you see all of this was to turn the whole macro picture around, but now it's the seller's turn again. So we need to wait for them to finish. When the buyers step back in, they shift the momentum. We'll watch, show us you can't make any lower low. And then what you'll see, it's probably not going to be straight like that. Probably going to be the next one's going to go challenge here. Going to see something like that. And then we'll be out of this zone. But what does this basically lead me to believe? This whole situation here. And I know how messy this looks. So let me delete everything so far. I'm going to draw the same thing back again. So let me explain why a situation like this seems like it could be very probable to me. And I mean in terms of timescale, this lends itself to what we did in the market back here, where we trended and then we went sideways for probably just over half of the year. And then towards the end of the year, we had a huge parabolic run up. So that's where we are from a macro perspective. We're going to get into a micro perspective as well, but I'm going to create a whole new playlist that I'm going to upload those videos in. With all of that being said, this applies to stocks, this applies to commodities, this applies to Forex, this applies to anything on a chart. Let me repeat that. This applies to any and everything on a chart in any time frame you want to put it in. Do you understand? It's just we've been looking at the macro market cycle for XRP in this video. Anyway, with all of that being said, all of that being done, yeah, it's your boy, John Wickz. Should have blown your mind 1,000 times by now. Peace.